With a demand of developers at an all-time high, there has never been a better time to learn a programming language. So on today's episode of Cyber Studies, we're going to start the first of many of our Python Fundamentals course. Let's go. Welcome to Cyber Studies. If this is your first time here, my name is Giovanni. Thank you so much for stopping by. Python is one of the more powerful and versatile languages on the market with a very low barrier of entry. Anything from automation, machine learning, artificial intelligence, what have you. Python is very powerful and can be used in many different ways. So in our course, we're going to do 5 episodes, with the 5th episode being a project to kind of recoup the information that we've learned. We'll keep doing this until eventually we're no longer doing the fundamentals. So without further ado, let's get in there and start learning some Python. All right, so on tonight's episode, we're gonna do the tutorial through Windows 10. If you already have Linux or Mac, you may already have Python installed in your terminal. But with Windows, unlike PowerShell or command line, you do have to install Python. So what we'll do is we'll go into our start and launch up just your browser of choice. I'm going to go ahead and launch Edge because I don't have my bookmarks saved on here. And then we're going to go to the python.org website. This is the individuals who are running, making, and supporting the language. A few different tabs here. So we do have like the about, just kind of like a generalization, like their mission statement, what have you. Documentation, such as like their build support, anything from like guides, learning paths, something outside of YouTube. Communities, things like IRCs, like your internet relay chats, your forums, what have you, just kind of more of like your community. And then why we're here is because of downloads. So different operating systems, you're gonna have different downloads to have. And then a lot of times they have different iterations of Python in here. Sometimes they'll have older versions if you have applications that were built on, say, like Python 2. We're gonna be doing Python 3. In particular, anything that's above 3.6 and above, you'll be able to follow along with the tutorial just fine. So I went ahead and deleted all my stuff just so we can do this together. So we're gonna go ahead and install 3.10.5. And then while that's downloading, Python does come with like a text editing development environment. It's called idle. However, it is kind of lackluster. It's kind of like a Notepad plus. So we're gonna download something by JetBrains. It's called PyCharm. So we're gonna go into just Google real quick, and we're gonna go ahead and just do a quick Google search there, and then voila. So JetBrains, they do a couple other programs, but a lot of folks use PyCharm because it's one of the more user-friendly IDEs you can get. Now with PyCharm, they do have 2 different versions. They have your professional and they also have your community. We're gonna use community tonight. Just know that if you were doing more of like a professional environment, things like web development or any scientific tools, the professional version is more supported out of the box. You can achieve the same results through third-party programming plugins. There it is, plugins. But we're gonna be just fine with the community edition. So we're gonna go there. And it's gonna also download that. So now that both of those are finished, we're gonna go ahead and do Python first. So we're gonna install that here. Okay. And then we're gonna add Python to path, use the launcher as recommended, install. Yes, we'd like to download this. And this is relatively simple, as any wizards for installing software goes. This is just basically installing it on any of the environmental tools on Windows. So if you're using things like command line, you can call upon it. If you're using idle, if you're using PyCharm, Visual Studios, what have you, it is installing it on the machine. As I mentioned earlier, if you have Linux or Mac, you can access it right out of the box. It's just probably an older iteration, depending on what version of the operating system that you've installed. So successful there, very cool. I'm gonna close that out. And then now we're going to install PyCharm. So real quick, again, you're gonna follow the wizard and set this up. But as I mentioned, I deleted my stuff so we can do it together. So If you're uncomfortable, hang tight. We will get this thing knocked out. All right, Community Edition. Just saying, hey, we're gonna install it on the paths here. Let's go ahead and create a desktop shortcut. And then we're gonna associate, let's just associate this to any of our Python scripts. We're gonna install it in there. So now that PyCharm is finished downloading, we're gonna go ahead and run that up. And what's really nice about PyCharm, it's a very rich, clean environment. The benefits of going with an IDE versus like a regular text editor, you're gonna get things like debugging, error line callouts, you're gonna get auto completion. There's just a lot of benefits for using a IDE. The cons are that they're a little bit heavier. So if you're getting into like your larger, larger projects, they're better at that kind of stuff, but they also take up more resources on the machine. Whereas a text editor, they're lighter to work with until you get into these bigger projects. So whereas IDEs are just constantly utilizing resources, that's their, I guess, pro and con. They carve out the resources and they allocate it to the project, whereas a text editor, it's going to acquire more resources as needed. So once you start into your bigger projects, it starts bogging down. So looks like that's because I had an older version. Okay, cool. So we now have PyCharm. So let's go ahead and full screen this here. And we're going to create a new project. And just the basic default settings are fine on this. We have our file path on where we're actually creating our script, as well as the welcome script that they have you create. You can turn that off, but for demonstration purposes, we're just gonna leave that up there. So let's full screen this again. Very cool. So this is what PyCharm looks like. If you've never used an IDE, it could be a little bit intimidating, but basically you have all of your project files on the left over here. You have your console or your like your kind of scripting area. And then we're going to turn on our terminal down here. And this is kind of what you're going to be seeing if you weren't using the IDE. This is what your command or your bash or what have you would actually look like. So then we're going to run the little demo script that they give us by hitting the top right up here, or you can do Shift F10. But you hit the play button and it says, "Hi PyCharm." So this is the little welcome script that they give you, and we're gonna dive into making our own. So let's start getting into the course. All right, well, thank you very much for watching this episode 0 on building your Python environment and setting up our IDE. Next episode is going to be the basics of Python. So again, if you like what you saw today, please consider liking and subscribing, and leave some comments down below. Let me know what some videos you'd like to see on this channel. So see you next time.